Facebook blocks blasphemy while Twitter censors searches. London goes Muslim, and the FBI has built a facial recognition database. Welcome to our brave new world for Tuesday, April 4th, 2017. I'm Derek Gilbert. First up, it has been confirmed, President Trump right again. The conspiracy theory, so-called, that a close Obama associate worked to unmask the Trump team, resulting in an ongoing media spectacle over collusion between the Trump team and the government of Russia, has been confirmed, first by independent journalist Mike Cernovich and now by Bloomberg News. Cernovich dropped an exclusive bombshell over the weekend, naming Obama's national security advisor Susan Rice as the official responsible for unmasking the incoming Trump team during incidental surveillance by the National Security Agency. Toward the end of his term in office, Barack Obama's top aides routinely reviewed intelligence reports from the NSA's incidental intercepts of Americans overseas, taking advantage of rules that were loosened by President Obama in 2011. And guess who had authorization to unmask the names of Americans caught in these communication intercepts? Former CIA Director John Brennan, former Attorney General Loretta Lynch, and former National Security Advisor Susan Rice. Now, what does unmasking mean? U.S. intelligence agencies routinely do legal surveillance of foreign nationals under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or FISA. FISA only authorizes electronic surveillance of non-U.S. people, but it can pick up American citizens in this surveillance if they are one of the parties in a conversation. For example, if the ambassador of another country, say Russia, talks over the phone to an American citizen, both of them would be recorded. In that example, when the phone call or other communication is transcribed for analysis, the name of the U.S. citizen is not supposed to be identified. The intelligence agency uses an alias like U.S. person number 1 or number 2, whatever. This is called masking. Now, there are times when the intelligence agency needs to know the name of the person in the conversation because perhaps this person is discussing things that aren't quite legal. And so they have to ask that the name of the person be removed or the mask be removed, and hence the term unmasking. There are legal reasons to unmask someone, and officials are required to follow legal procedures for unmasking the names of American citizens caught in FISA intercepts. But it's also possible that these names were unmasked and then leaked to the press for other reasons, political reasons, perhaps to show that the incoming Trump team was collaborating with Russia. Now, it's worth repeating that House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes, pictured here, said that the intercepted communications that he saw were not related to Russia at all. Not only that, but he added there was no apparent intelligence value to what he saw. Now, there could be an innocent explanation to all of this, but if it turns out that the unmasking of American citizens' names, such as Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, President Trump's original nominee to be National Security Advisor, if it turns out that there were no intelligence value, nothing of intelligence value to these intercepts, then this makes the Watergate break-in look like Leave It to Beaver. Now, Susan Rice appears to have been playing the role of designated liar for the Obama administration. Last week, when asked about Nunes' claims of incidental surveillance, Rice went full-on Sergeant Schultz. I know nothing. You might remember that Susan Rice is also the Obama administration official who claimed that the Benghazi attack that killed Ambassador Chris Stevens and 3 other Americans was because of a lame YouTube video that criticized Islam. She also went before the United Nations to claim that Muammar Gaddafi was supplying his troops with Viagra to encourage mass rape. This was found by a UN committee later to be completely untrue. She also praised Army deserter Bo Bergdahl as a soldier who served the United States with honor and distinction. Bergdahl, at last check, is facing a pretrial hearing in his court-martial for desertion. Also of note is the claim by Cernovich that New York Times journalist Maggie Haberman has been sitting on the Susan Rice story for at least 2 days by this point, before it was published Monday, that is, by Eli Lake in Bloomberg View. And credit where it's due, again, Mike Kernovich, independent journalist, is the one who broke this story and forced the hand of the major media in even discussing this story, because most of them have no interest whatsoever in validating anything that Donald Trump has to say or making the Obama administration look like the incompetent liars that they were, to be quite frank about it. Lake's report, backed up by additional reporting by Fox News, could corroborate some of the White House's claims that it was, in fact, spied upon by the Obama White House during the transition period. National news outlets, that is, have been mostly passive in reporting on this story. The New York Times ran the story Monday evening that said the Rice story originated with conservative media outlets, as if that somehow taints the information. Look, facts are facts. Doesn't matter if it's liberal, conservative, progressive, or Martian that reports on the story. The facts are what they are. Susan Rice lied because her signature are on the documents showing that she actually looked at these intelligence intercepts. So for her to say she had no knowledge of what Devin Nunes, Congressman Nunes, was talking about is a lie. The paper, by the way, the New York Times, also said that the White House's citing of the report was an attempt to deflect scrutiny of the Russian collaboration allegations. Washington Post also didn't cover the initial report, but Press Secretary Sean Spicer did mention during his press briefing on Monday, that was covered, and mentioned that Spicer was trying to criticize the media for being so lax in reporting on this particular story. In other news, nearly half of all Americans are in a facial recognition database somewhere. The FBI can get at this database without a warrant, without even having a suspicion that the person being searched for might be involved in some crime. How did we get here? Well, illegally, apparently. That was the conclusion at a House Oversight Committee hearing last week. The committee called for stricter regulation of facial recognition technology when it is, the use of it is exploding right now, both in the hands of law enforcement and in private business. Now, the FBI by law was required to first publish a privacy impact assessment before using facial recognition technology, or FRT, but it has done no such thing. Instead of conducting and making public a privacy assessment, the FBI has been forging ahead with the use of this technology, and this is in spite of what this House committee described as accuracy deficiencies. In other words, the technology is misidentifying people. 80% of the people in the database don't have any sort of arrest record. Yet the system's database, the database's recognition system, the software that takes these data points and tries to match it up with an actual living person, inaccurately identifies people about 15% of the time. Black women, most often being misidentified. Again, welcome to our brave new world. The Food and Drug Administration will allow women a longer window to chemically abort unborn babies with less medical oversight. The FDA quietly expanded abortion access last Wednesday. Now, we usually think of abortion as a process controlled by laws and court cases, but this change was just a careful relabeling of aimed at increasing access to the abortifacient drug RU-486. The FDA has approved its use up to 70 days after a woman's last menstrual cycle. This is up from the previous 49-day limit. RU-486 now comprises 1/4 of all abortions. And not surprisingly, Planned Parenthood has heralded the move as a leap forward for women's health. Coming up, a possible chemical attack in Syria has left scores dead. That's straight ahead on SkyWatchTV. The technology that's changing the modern military is changing the very definition of what it means to be human. SkyWatchTV is proud to offer the important new book from Lieutenant Colonel Bob McGinnis, Future War: Super Soldiers, Terminators, Cyberspace, and the National Security Strategy for 21st Century Combat. Order Future War from the SkyWatch TV store, and you'll also get Never Submit by Lieutenant Colonel Bob McGinnis. The Blood on the Altar audio presentation, The Coming War Between Christian versus Christian, featuring Tom Horn and Steve Quayle. What you don't know will kill you. Genetics, GMOs, and the plan to eradicate humankind. A special investigative report from Tom Horn and the SkyWatch TV team. And a 2-year subscription to SkyWatch TV magazine. This is a value of more than $125, yours for just $24.95. Order now by calling toll-free 844-750-4985 or log on to skywatchtvstore.com. A suspected chemical attack in a town in Syria's northern Idlib province has killed dozens of people Tuesday. This is according to Syrian opposition activists. They described the attack as among the worst in the country's 6-year civil war. The Britain-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights Monitoring Group put the death toll at 58, including 11 children. Meanwhile, the Idlib Media Center said dozens of people had been killed. Now, to be honest, Syrian Observatory for Human Rights is kind of a spotty track record when it comes to facts, but this is being reported by multiple sources. No comment from the government in Damascus or any international agency, so we're not really sure even who launched this attack, what was used, and the actual toll of dead and wounded. But this is the third claim of a chemical attack in Syria in just over a week. A new resolution set to be submitted by Arab nations on behalf of the Palestinians to UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, would challenge Israel's sovereignty over the entire city of Jerusalem, not just the Temple Mount, but the whole city. A draft resolution obtained by Israeli officials said, quote, any action taken by Israel, the occupying power, to impose its laws, jurisdiction, or administration on the city of Jerusalem are illegal, therefore null and void and have no validity whatsoever, end quote. The vote is scheduled for May 1st. It was submitted by Algeria, Egypt, Lebanon, Morocco, Oman, Qatar, and Sudan on behalf of the Palestinians. May 1st, Beltane. The State Department said Monday it was ending U.S. funding for the United Nations Population Fund. This is the international body's agency focused on family planning in over 150 nations. In a letter to U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee Chairman Bob Corker, the State Department said it was dropping the funding because the UNFPA supports or participates in the management of a program of coercive abortion and involuntary sterilization, end quote. The cut marks President Trump's first move to cut back funding for the UN, and it's likely to raise questions about how deep those cuts will go throughout the organization, for which the United States is the largest donor. As we've reported previously, the United Kingdom is on the road to becoming a predominantly Muslim nation, and British multiculturalists are sadly feeding this trend. Muslims, in order to succeed in this goal, don't need to become the majority in the UK. They just need to gradually Islamify the major cities, and that process is well underway. A leading British judge, Sir James Munby, said that Christianity is no longer the main influence on the courts, and that the courts must be multicultural, which means more Islamic. Rowan Williams, the former Archbishop of Canterbury, and Chief Justice Lord Phillips, that is, also suggested that English law should incorporate elements of Sharia law. At last count, London now has 423 mosques, while since 2001, some 500 churches in London have been converted into private homes. If trends continue, it's estimated that 4,000 churches across England will be shut down by 2020. Jewish activists who want to rebuild the Holy Temple in Jerusalem are hosting a provocative Passover sacrifice in an archaeological park next to the Temple Mount this year. The ceremony at the Davidson Center will likely be met with opposition from the Palestinian Waqf, that's the governing authority that controls the Temple Mount. Temple Mount activists want to rebuild the temple on top of the mount, which in some plans means having to demolish the Dome of the Rock. Just a bit problematic. Last year, Temple Mount activists hosted the Passover sacrifice, complete with the ritual slaughter of a lamb in view of the Holy Mount. This was done from the Mount of Olives, a cemetery in the Mount of Olives. But this year, organizers wanted to get as close to the Temple Mount as possible. It's unclear whether police have been notified or given approval for the sacrifice. Facebook is now enforcing blasphemy laws in Pakistan, blocking blasphemous content, according to Pakistani government minister. The company has blocked 62 blasphemous web pages and 45 in the past few days alone, according to the minister. This accounts for 85% of all blasphemous content on Facebook's Pakistan site. Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif ordered Facebook to remove or block blasphemous content earlier this month and said that anyone posting such material should be punished. Facebook taking up the enforcement of Islamic law. And meanwhile, Twitter is now blocking certain search terms from showing up on the platform's built-in search engine. If you want to search for specific terms, you may be out of luck. This is reportedly, ostensibly, part of the company's plans to reduce harassment on Twitter. Some of the filters were rolled out earlier this month when users were given the option to mute certain types of Twitter accounts. But as with previous attempts to convert Twitter into a safe space, the company is being somewhat vague about how it's filtering and exactly what it's filtering out of its search engine. And this search is turned on by default. You can't opt out of it very easily. You actually have to go to the search page and then dig in order to find the spot to turn it off. Now, the question is whether this is just a sneaky way of imposing a shadow ban on certain types of speech on Twitter. Mike Kernovich, the independent journalist we mentioned earlier, who's an outspoken pro-Trump supporter on Twitter, has noticed over the last month or so that his Twitter impressions during the month of March dropped by 50 to 70% over February. And that the number of retweets of things that he posted had dropped by 50 to 70%, meaning probably people just aren't seeing them because Twitter is blocking them. Other prominent Twitter accounts that have either been affected by or made reference to the shadow ban include InfoWars, WorldNet Daily, Mark Dice, Zero Hedge, and Dilbert cartoon creator Scott Adams, if you can believe that. If you're interested, by the way, in turning off the search filter on Twitter, you go to their search page, and then you have to look for those three little dots in the menu bar. Not really obvious, and that's by design. Free speech being policed by Facebook and Twitter. Think about that. This week's guest on SkyWatch TV as we discuss the work of the shadow government led by Barack Obama and his lieutenants to try to hamstring the presidency of Donald Trump, Washington insider and the author of the excellent book Future Wars that we highly recommend, Lieutenant Colonel Bob McGinnis. You'll see that program, well, you've seen the schedule going across the bottom of the screen here throughout this broadcast. But of course, you'll find the links for broadcast times and places at the website, skywatchtv.com. Look in the top menu bar where it says channels. This week's web exclusive, a program we couldn't fit in the network television schedule, Timothy Alberino of Gen 6 Productions. He discusses the research trip that he and members of the SkyWatch TV team took to the Four Corners area in the American Southwest for the forthcoming documentary, True Legends, There Were Giants. Fascinating conversation. You'll find that only as a web exclusive online at skywatchtv.com and the SkyWatch TV channels on Roku and YouTube. You'll find everything we do online at skywatchtv.com, including links to all of our social media stuff, Twitter and Facebook, while they last, as well as our Instagram feed. And you'll find all of my stuff at derekpgilbert.com, including a link to the new article in the series leading up to the release of the new book, The Great Inception, which we are promised is supposed to be here this week so that we can start shipping. You'll find that at derekpgilbert.com, derekpgilbert.com. And thank you for watching as we keep watch. I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is SkyWatch TV. Hence the term unmasking. There are legal reasons to unmask someone, and officials are required to follow legal procedures for unmasking the names of American citizens caught in FISA intercepts. But it's also possible that these names were unmasked and then leaked to the press for other reasons, political reasons, perhaps to show that the incoming Trump team was collaborating with Russia. Now, it's worth repeating that House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes, pictured here, said that the intercepted communications that he saw were not related to Russia at all. Not only that, team and the government of Russia has been confirmed, first by independent journalist Mike Cernovich and now by Bloomberg News. Cernovich dropped an exclusive bombshell over the weekend, naming Obama's national security advisor Susan Rice as the official responsible for unmasking the incoming Trump team during incidental surveillance by the National Security Agency. Toward the end of his term in office, Barack Obama's top aides routinely reviewed intelligence reports from the NSA's incidental intercepts of Americans overseas, taking advantage of rules that were loosened by President Obama in 2011. And guess who had authorization to unmask? Facebook blocks blasphemy while Twitter censors searches. London goes Muslim, and the FBI has built a facial recognition database. Welcome to our brave new world for Tuesday, April 4th, 2017. I'm Derek Gilbert. First up, it has been confirmed President Trump right again. The conspiracy theory, so-called, that a close Obama associate worked to unmask the Trump team, resulting in an ongoing media spectacle over collusion between the Trump talks over the phone to an American citizen. Both of them would be recorded. In that example, when the phone call or other communication is transcribed for analysis, the name of the U.S. citizen is not supposed to be identified. The intelligence agency uses an alias like U.S. person number 1 or number 2, whatever. This is called masking. Now, there are times when the intelligence agency needs to know the name of the person in the conversation because perhaps this person is discussing things that aren't quite legal. And so they have to ask that the name of the person be removed or the mask be removed, and the names of Americans caught in these communication intercepts: former CIA Director John Brennan, former Attorney General Loretta Lynch, and former National Security Advisor Susan Rice. Now, what does unmasking mean? U.S. intelligence agencies routinely do legal surveillance of foreign nationals under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or FISA. FISA only authorizes electronic surveillance of non-U.S. people, but it can pick up American citizens in this surveillance if they are one of the parties in a conversation. For example, if the ambassador of another country, say Russia,